English translation 556th contact Saturday, the 16th of March 2013, 14:47 hours.
Hello, Pta. You obviously had to wait because Heartmud is working in Eva's office. Unfortunately, I did not know that when I told you after the correction work with Bernadette that you could still read these explanations here before I came over.
Yes, that's why I am only coming now, because the door to Eva's workroom was open. But the article interests me, so can I read it right now?
Naturally. Here you go.
Thanks.
Pa reads,
What is an oath, a vow, a perjury, and what is a promise?
Since ancient times it has been reasonably taught that the human being should not take an oath respectively an oath, because an oath vow is either born out of sheer fear or out of gavolt and coercion. Therefore, the human being's speech is always only a yes or no to affirm reality and its truth, but never an oath, which is supposed to confirm the yes or no to the utmost, be it wrong or correct. Under oath or vow is usually understood as a solemn affirmation or assurance respectively, a prescribed form of telling the truth, not to conceal anything in relation to knowing everything exactly and knowing the true facts exactly, such as how something has been or should have been. An oath is either required, which in any case is a compulsion, and inevitably restricts the human being's freedom of expression, or it is taken out of religious sectarian delusion, or it is taken out of sheer fear of any punishment or threat of disaster, etc. An oath vow is based on the obligation to be bound to the sworn respectively sworn in, and this under all circumstances, and also to agree to recognition of disadvantage or punishment if the oath is not or cannot be kept, for example for negative or positive reasons of conscience, etc. When an oath vow is taken, the human being commits himself through fear or compulsion to tell the truth, and nothing but the truth. Also, when he cannot do this for any reason for his own or a dear fellow human being's good, and is therefore forced to lie. Furthermore, the oath vow also applies to wanting or giving absolute security for something that is to be done or no longer done. With regard to competent authorities such as public authorities, military, religious, sectarian, clan, organizational and state tribunals and civil courts. As for court cases or a constitution, etc., the oath vow together with the secular oath vow rule usually corresponds to a holy taking of an oath or a holy oath on the book of religion, Bible, Quran, book of laws or rules, etc. If an oath vow has been taken on something and this is not true, then this is called my oath. Or if, for example, it is sworn that something specific will be kept or done and not done, then this is called a breach of oath. If an oath is taken by which something is asserted to the extreme as truth, such as an event, a behavior, a situation, a thing or an occurrence, etc., then this corresponds as it should have been or was in reality. If, however, an invented and fictitious truth and reality is sworn or conjured up, because the sworn or conjured thing is truly an untruth, and thus a lie or slander, then this corresponds to a perjury that is punished by law with severe punishment. Unless unavoidable and compelling circumstances prevent the fulfillment of a promise in relation to oneself or to other human beings, there is never a reason not to keep a promise made to oneself or to others. If, however, a promise is broken without unavoidable and compelling circumstances, then this is necessarily a sign of an unprecedented lack of honor and dignity, and also of a lack of respect for oneself, for the cause of the promise and for the human beings involved in it. And the promise is a fraud and a lie. An oath vow, contrary to false assertions and interpretations, has nothing to do with a commitment or promise, because a commitment is based on a profound promise made without fear or compulsion, but out of free will and out of deep personal need. Through a promise, something is praised or expressly and definitively and clearly assured, out of free will and out of personal need, usually to one or more other people, etc., that something specific will be done and that it will be kept and fulfilled. In this context, something is promised that awakens hope, and that it will certainly also be fulfilled. In any case, a promise corresponds to a voluntary, thoughtful, and absolutely binding declaration and promise, which must be kept under all honorable circumstances. If, however, the human being becomes fragile with regard to the promise he has made, then he will be called a characterless, dishonorable, and undignified person, and accordingly, in the vernacular, also a character rag, whereby even the best family relationships and friendships are broken. The most valuable promises that a human being can basically make are those which relate to his own personality, in order to personally do, keep, do, learn, perform, accomplish something specific, or to stand up for something in a righteous and dignified manner, etc. With a self-referral promise, a self-chosen and self-referral commitment is made, based on one's own honor and character, personal integrity, righteousness, and dignity. If, therefore, from this point of view, the promise is not kept, broken and disregarded, then personal self-esteem, self-respect, self-confidence, and self-worthiness are so demolished that the human being sinks into a deep disrespect for himself, as well as into self-contempt, self-worthlessness, and injustice. If this happens, the human being is no longer able to exist in front of himself, which is very damaging to his own qualities, character, attitudes, personality, and all his negative behavior. And since many human beings make promises to themselves, but do not keep them and break them, they are unfortunately in a bad way, so that they often have very serious problems in their lives which they cannot overcome. Many of them also become lonely, aimless, and rot, scare themselves away and become afraid. Simyase, Silver Star Center, the 14th of March 2013, 18:25 hours, Billy.
As usual, I find your explanations very good. But in addition, I do not understand why you have bothered to make these explanations. Are you again writing a work that presents such facts?
No, I am not writing a new book at the moment. There was a question about the term promise at the last meeting in the group. Then later, Bernadette also asked me separately after the...
Someone knocked on the door.
I heard it. So Bernadette asked me the difference between vow and promise. And that's what led me to Esh.
There was another knock on the door.
Please go to the back so I can check quickly. It will be Hartmut, because he probably wants something from me. So here I am again, and we have to be a little quiet. It was really Hartmut, and he wanted to tell me something. But now I asked him not to disturb me anymore, and I also put the card outside by the door that one should not disturb. So then again, in answer to Bernadette's question, I wrote the explanation about the difference between oath, vow, and promise.
I see.
May I ask what is now concerning the statutes and bylaws, how I let you inquire about Florena? Have you clarified the matter with Quetzal regarding the 7 years or an even longer hiatus?
Florena sent me the group's request and I called the panel, which also includes Quetzal. The consensus view of the panel is that the maximum length of time off should not exceed 7 years. The justification for this is that a longer absence from the core group would lead to complete alienation from the core group members on the one hand. But on the other hand, there would also be alienation and neglect with regard to the internally connected obligations, as well as with regard to learning and mission work and mission fulfillment. 7 years is therefore to remain the maximum time out, whereby this is already set very far and can already lead to drifting away with regard to learning, internal fulfillment of obligations, and working on the mission, whereby it is not far to break the promise made to oneself with regard to the mission obligation. And if this happens, then exactly what you have stated in your execution will come true, namely that self-esteem, self-respect, and self-respect will be destroyed and self-loathing and injustice will prevail.
Then I think it is clear to us that we are adhering to the 7-year time limit. Good, then the case is clear. Then here are two more questions. In the Book of Names, the meaning of the name Alexin is healing potion maker. Is that correct, or should it be called healing potion preparer? Then in relation to woman and woman we have both. Should woman or woman be used throughout?
Healing potion preparer is correct. With regard to female and woman, I think that the old designation female should probably be retained because they are traditional names.
Another question. What should I do if you find errors, etc. in contact reports or in books and writings? Up to now, I have always given them directly to Bernadette, and she immediately corrected the error and set it right. Should this continue to be the case, or should it be kept according to the new decision, which says that Andrea should keep an appropriate list of errors?
The most sensible thing is probably to stick with the system that has worked so far. The other only creates new activities and uncertainty that then not everything will be corrected according to my information.
Now, however, I would like to turn the discussion once again to those UFO sightings and UFO photos, which militaries and police as well as also pilots substantiate, and which indeed in the last few decades are hundreds. About these, I mean those which have nothing to do with all of those UFO nutcases, who deceptively falsify images and films or even maintain that they, in a mostly Christian, esoteric, and sectarian way, would have personal or telepathic contacts with extraterrestrials. Especially, I want yet to speak about the occurrences in regard to the appearances in Phoenix in the USA respectively, the Phoenix Lights in 1997, which last January, thus 2013, is said to have happened again. In 1997, these UFOs have been observed in Sonora, Nevada, and Mexico as well. Then there is also still the case of Rendlesham Forest in England at the beginning of the 1980s, as well as, however, also in 2006, the case of O'Hare, Chicago, as well as the appearances in Anchorage, Alaska, and the case of 1989 in Belgium, with the prolonged wave of UFO sightings. Further sightings in worldwide form by pilots. Militaries, police, and private individuals run into the hundreds, whereby it is said that approximately 800 or even more observations are seriously to be considered. I know from you that a number of these observed UFOs lead back to your beamships, but many hundred always still remain unknown. Thus I assume that it, with all of these unexplained UFO appearances, on the one hand, probably has to concern secret terrestrial military flight machines, etc., of various nations to which even also China belongs, like you told me last time. Additionally, you have once spoken of those from the Earth's future, which are also to be considered. On the other hand, it concerns at the same time, however, probably also about those three groups unknown to you who have no information regarding you, and therefore are also unable to attain information about you.
This corresponds to actuality, because all of the appearances of unknown flying objects mentioned by you, as well as hundreds of others, lead back only very rarely to we Plejaren and to those of our Federation, who sometimes regarding the fact that they are seen are those of the Federation who are somewhat less careful than we. As a rule, everything leads back to the three alien groups to us, as well as to secret terrestrial military flight machines of various nations.
Then this is clear, and apparently if I take notice of your words, then nothing has changed between you and the three alien groups.
That is actually so, and we will ourselves also not try to come into contact with the aliens. And in regard to them, we also do not know from where they come, which also does not interest us, which is why we also do not try to clarify their origin. Also, everything indicates for us that if we speak of their technology as a starting point, which compared to ours is relatively still very much underdeveloped, and that also their consciousness development still leaves much to be desired.
I can comprehend that. However, you once said years ago that you have carried out clarifications and studies in detail, and that since 1947, no more Earth foreigners have flown into terrestrial airspace. How is it then with the three foreign groups?
We have spoken about them already many times, and I have explained that these groups who are aliens to us are not therein to be included, because we have known about them as aliens for a long time. Our clarifications were and are valid only for new foreigners from the year 1947, and such have not flown into the terrestrial space since then. And as we see the matter, the 3 foreigners unknown to us belong to groups that did not enter the earthly realm recently after the year 1947. Hence it is possible that they even come from the Earth itself, or already long ago as Earth foreigners were here, before we undertook our new mission on the Earth. Admittedly, since that time we have registered activities again and again in the terrestrial airspace, and I mean up to the present time. But in connection to this, we see the 3 alien groups to us as those who are truthfully already here for a long time or even belong to the Earth, perhaps also in a future dimension. From this follows that we also do not concern ourselves about them and also do not try to come into their range, because we do not want to bring about any conflicts with them. Solely this is forbidden to us already by our directives. What it is, however, with all the observations in the USA, England and Belgium mentioned by you and also many others elsewhere, this we do not know because already we no longer try for a long time to make clarifications of such occurrences.
From your words I gather that you therefore do not know whether with the 3 groups alien to you concerns Earth foreigners, thus extraterrestrials or from the Earth's future, or whether it concerns with the USA, Belgium, and England, etc., observed large unknown flying bodies, perhaps secret terrestrial military machines?
This is correct, such as you say, and we have also no interest to explain about them, because our tasks do not relate directly to such interests, but only and alone to your mission as well as to certain matters, which arise from terrestrial climatic and planetary development, as well as with population, political, and science, as well as technology development. With everything, it concerns only clarification and observation tasks, however not 1 iota more. An intervention into any terrestrial interest, therefore, according to our directives, in no way whatsoever is permitted to us.
However, you nevertheless have a technology hardly to be surpassed, at least as seen by we Earthlings, by which it would be possible to make clarifications and examinations unnoticed regarding those who you could examine closely. These even in connection to from where they come, who they are, and what their motives are, to function mysteriously in the terrestrial area without identifying themselves.
This is quite correct, but our directives forbid such actions except if there would appear such unknown aircraft to our homeworlds. It would be permitted to us additionally also only then if the aliens themselves approach us and would seek contact with us. However, this is not only questionable, that they will do it, because as far as our directives permit, we are able to clarify that the 3 alien groups to us up to now send out signals in no way whatsoever, which would indicate that they would know of our existence. So then, as we see everything, our presence is therefore not known to them, which certainly therein is based on the fact that we always protect ourselves against them from an open contact. As a result, they can have no awareness of our presence in the terrestrial area because we protect ourselves against them from any awareness. Thus, regarding our presence, only assumption can be given by them, if at all. However, this does not mean, contrarily, that we from our side are not able to perceive them, because their activities are indeed such that these also are apparently undisputed for Earth humans, and again are able to be observed. These are our certain discoveries, which our directives permit us to be able to gain clarifications. This also means for us thus, that we ourselves already for considerable time in no way tried to obtain more about the 3 alien groups to us. As a result, we also have no knowledge about their time and time again occurring activities.
Then it is also senseless if I perhaps were to ask you once again, when it concerns a UFO which was observed? Anyway, as a realization, Therefore, it also would not be permitted to you to help Earth if some foreign extraterrestrials came in power to the Earth and would display ambitions of conquest?
That is absolutely correct, because since we no longer concern ourselves about these interests, no more are we able to deliver information and explanations. Clarifications in the mentioned connection are for us not of interest, and they also never were. But we endeavored ourselves to obtain always simply only about clarifications, which fell within our own interests and will fall in the future. What we have done further regarding that which goes beyond our own interests, this we have carried out only in order to be able to deliver certain data to you and the group members. We no longer do this for considerable time, as you know, because in no way whatsoever did it bring usefulness in any connection. This also applies to many other things and also private interests of persons, etc., which in their regard we no longer endeavor ourselves to obtain clarifications for them. And what you say regarding foreign extraterrestrial powers, then this would actually be the case, as you say. We permit ourselves in no way to interfere.
Actually, a pity that you no longer make clarifications and that you also no longer deliver explanations. But I can understand the whole matter, when I consider in all of the years everything in this connection has brought no usefulness. Then therefore also there will be no more clarifications made regarding previous personalities? And with regard to your directives, is indeed also everything clear?
This follows from my explanation.
Clear. Then once again a question regarding the 3 alien groups. Do you assume, perhaps, that these could turn out to be a danger for you?
We do not assume this, because according to our discoveries, their technology is still extremely underdeveloped compared to ours, which is to be concluded from their flight maneuvers and from their total behavior. And what arises with the technology of their aircraft, this applies with certainty also to their possible weapon technology. Consequently, we would have a great and not to be surpassed advantage over them. If they would be in possession of ray weapons, then would a use of these be the same in every case to our favor and to our great advantage, because we absorb all kinds of radiation and know how to use for our own energy production. Radiations appearing to our protection shields and similar energies are absorbed, and to our own energies adapted, accumulated, and from them strengthened.
I know this, because you have already earlier explained to me that your protection and weapon systems in your ships do not work the same as those in science fiction movies like Star Trek, etc. On the Earth is shown that the protection shields just become weaker by energy and radiation bombardment, but that you absorb onto your protection shield appearing energies, and as a result the energetic all-around cloaking shield of your ships is strengthened. Thus it is such that the more radiation energy, etc., is fired onto your ships, the stronger their protection shields become.
That is correct. However, also if solid projectiles, respectively solid materials, are shot at our protection shields, we are able to transfer their kinetic energy into an energy usefulness while the projectiles change and becomes useless. If the projectiles contain explosives of any kind, then these will become neutralized and become a harmless mass.
And how is it if it would concern asteroids, meteors, and space rubbish or missiles with atomic warheads?
These also would be neutralized and present no danger for us.
So it should also be with we Earthlings, then much disaster would be avoided. When alone I think about what everything is caused by Earth humans with weapons, then this terrifies me. Many Earthlings have weapons of all kinds who really should not be granted a permit for a weapon, because many weapon possessors are unstable and cracking up in their lack of self-control. This proves time and time again and more, like I have indeed revealed this in my predictions, and I mean in connection to the fact that by unstable and cracking up humans, more and more murders and mass murders occur in families, groups and schools, as well as, however, also more and more murders and mass murders through foreigner race and religious hate, as well as also through terrorism.
Weapons impart to an unstable, intemperate human crazed and confused thoughts and feelings of invulnerability, as well as also an unscrupulous willingness for violence and an unlimited power behavior. As a result, he is not in control of his thoughts, feelings, emotion-like stirrings. Consequently, he is in no way able to control himself and his actions. If such a human uses a weapon and sets it into function, then he is captivated by an adrenaline rush, whereby all control mechanisms in the brain are left without power. And he only just automatically aggressively acts, and in this way also unhesitatingly kills and possibly falls victim to a killing frenzy. With this, the kind of weapon plays no role. Consequently, it can therefore be a shooting, stabbing or beating weapon, as well as also a suffocation or strangling weapon, as well as also the bare hands, the arms, fists, the feet and knees, as well as the head, etc.
Let's get back to the 3 alien groups. So you do not suppose that you could be in danger from aliens. But what about the fact that danger for the Earth, that is to say for terrestrial mankind, could come from them?
For all of the last 200 years, nothing has indicated that such a danger could come from foreigners to the Earth. But we do not know their intentions, and hence cannot say with certainty whether it might not be the case that some strangers to the Earth have evil intentions.
Not exactly a consolation. So we can only hope that these foreigners are as peaceful as you Plejaren and those of your Federation. If the Earth and terrestrial humanity were threatened with disaster by the extraterrestrial foreigners, or by those from the future, how would you then react?
You know that our directives would forbid an intervention, as I already mentioned.
I know, however, also this is indeed just not exactly comforting. It is only to assume that everything turns out peacefully. If someday official contacts come to take place with Earth aliens, or those from the future, which in fact certain prophecies have announced already from time immemorial.
What someday arises, this will prove with time.
Therefore, it is very comforting not to know what actually will arise. However, perhaps it is good for the humans of Earth. On the other hand, however, it has also proven that predictions likewise are not paid heed to, as well as also prophecies, because the majority of terrestrial humanity is not concerned about them. This, likewise, has been proven since time immemorial in regard to all of the prophecies and their fulfillments, as well as also all of yours and mine predictions, all which have completely been fulfilled, and also still in the future will be fulfilled. But let me ask you a question regarding Venus. Because seen from the North Pole, this planet does not rotate clockwise in relation to all other SOL planets, but is the only one that rotates in the opposite direction, in a non-clockwise direction. Why is this so?
Except for the planet Venus, all other planets in the Sol system have formed within the system itself and have remained on their original orbits. The planet Venus, however, as you know, was dragged into the interior of the SOL system by the destroyer, as a result of which the direction of rotation also changed, and this was counterclockwise, as you call it.
Sure, I forgot, because you explained that earlier.
Correct.
Then the following question. Here on Earth, every life form after procreation first develops as a female form, after which it is only determined by the process of development whether the being remains female or whether a male form develops from it. This corresponds to a creational-natural principle, and consequently, in my opinion, this applies universally, and also to exotic, respectively unfamiliar extraterrestrial life forms, or?
Of course.
I thought so. Then there is the question. Only from creational-natural energy solid matter is created. Therefore, this can also be transformed back into creational-natural energy without exception. Is that correct?
This is correct because all matter is created from pure natural energy and can therefore also be transformed back into pure natural energy.
Then it should also be possible that such energies can be produced from many different kinds of matter and used as propulsion energies for spaceships and for many other things. One example is atomic energy, but it should also be possible with any other matter than uranium.
That is indeed the case, but RD.
Rectives forbid you to discuss this. But I also did not want you to make statements about it. My only interest was whether I was right or not, and you confirmed that, which is enough for me.
Well, then there is the following, which must be private.